Hello everybody and welcome back to Checkpoint Radio. It's been a little while but we are back. We've had a little break. We're back for episode 10. It's a return to Hall of Fame. But firstly, I'm joined by the crew, Ben, Charlie, Connor. Lads, it feels like ages since we've been here and I'm sure like me, we're all happy to be back on the podcast.
Yes, we are. It's been too many 2 weeks, if that made any sense. Too many weeks since we were last all together recording a podcast, but it feels damn good to be back.
Yes, love
Too
it.
many 2 weeks.
Too many 2 weeks.
So how's everyone been spending their little break then? Have you all been playing lots of games, I assume?
Yes and no. So I spent the first 2 weeks... Well, I'll start with the no. So I spent the first 2 weeks up in Scotland from when we last did the episode.
Very
I was only
nice.
up there for about 6 days, but it kind of went over 2 weeks. And lovely time. Went to see some of Rachel's family and the new baby. So that was really, really nice. And Scotland's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And nice to kind of like get away from everything, work, and just kind of stick your phone somewhere safe and forget about it. And then just like take it all in, be somewhere completely different. It's all lovely and gorgeous and green up there. And then game-wise, so some of you may know that I've been working my way through my backlog of games that I've bought in the past and never put much time into. So I have been on an absolute complete streak and I've gone on a mad one and completed like maybe 10 games in the next 2 weeks.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, I've been going on it.
I don't even think I completed 10 games like last year.
Yeah, but the ones I'm most chuffed about, so I completed Hades. Never did I ever think that
That's a great
ever
game.
beat Hades himself. Yeah, excellent game. Really, really enjoyed it. I finally completed every single Lego game they've ever released on PC, which was very cool.
That's quite impressive, actually. I mean, to be
Yeah.
fair, there are fucking loads of those games. So, yeah, fair play.
And the Star Wars saga, the Skywalker saga, was excellent, actually. The way they managed to, like, each film, they did, like, all the Star Wars films, well, obviously the Skywalker ones, and but they managed to, like, condense them and just take the best bits, but still felt like how the film portrayed it, and I don't know, it's just really, really good. Like, even though Star Wars and some of the most recent films gets a bit of a bad rap, you kind of forget all that when you play it with the tongue-in-cheek Lego. They always kind of take the piss, but it's just good fun. And I won't go through the rest, but yeah, it's been good. And I'm currently playing Marvel's Guardian of the Galaxy, which is another game that I didn't give much time, dropped, and I'm playing it again now. And I was just saying, whilst you were away, James, shortly earlier, to Connor and Charlie, I really consider this game a very, very good AAA title.
Yeah.
Like, in all aspects. Great story, great voice acting, great combat. I definitely, like, consider it on the same level as, like, Star Wars, the last... what's the Star Wars?
Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, Jedi Survivor, or the other one. And really, really good. So,
That's good.
but yeah,
That's good.
that's
I mean, like
wicked.
we'd all like to kind of be able to smash our backlog, but I don't think any of us are as committed as you, Ben. So, I mean, that's quite impressive, to be fair.
Yeah,
like,
I'm
fair play
chuffed.
to you.
I feel like an amateur now.
Yeah. We like
Some of the
pro
games were
games.
small. Like, one of the games was Hotline Miami. I literally did that in like 5
30
hours. Yeah. But
Right, cool.
yeah.
Wicked.
Connor, what about you, man? What you been up to?
So I've been working for the past month. I'm working night shifts now, so I'm working 4 days on, 3 days off. So I've had a little bit more time to play through games. I'm about 3/4 of the way through Last of Us Part 2 for the second time. I forgot the story, so I've gone back after watching the show. I've been playing Dave the Diver, which has just come out at
that is
like the
good, that
1.9. It's
Yeah.
a really fun little game. I've been playing clubs with yourself, Charlie, and our friend Femi, which is just toxic.
Toxic, mate.
But
That
it
game
keeps-
is so
No.
It keeps drawing us back.
Yeah.
And then I tried out that Jusant demo after the Summer Games Festival
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, was
So-
it good?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't play too much of it. I played about half an hour of it.
Yeah, probably
Got
got
the
to save
feel
it
for it.
till you actually get your hands on the full
But
game.
I can see myself losing a good few hours in that game when it comes to Game
nice,
Pass. So
man.
yeah,
That's cool.
So,
Oh, wicked.
Awesome. Charlie?
I
don't know.
Farming
Feels like
Simulator.
ages. It's a long time to recap.
I can't even remember the last month. I don't know what I've been doing.
No.
Sleeping.
I have definitely slept in that time. But no, had a nice beach day yesterday with yourself, James. That was good.
Yeah, got the paddle was out. It was fun. Sea was fucking cold though. Can't expect it much
Yeah,
in England. I
very,
guess.
very cold. Other than that, games-wise, I've played a game we're going to be talking about later, but we'll save that. I downloaded Farming Simulator to start my farming career. No idea what I'm doing. So, not very fruitful.
Farming's not easy, so
No.
It's not.
it
Shout out
sounds
to
like
the
they're
farmers.
taking that
Yeah.
game seriously. They want to give you the full kind of like, you want to be a farmer, do you? Okay,
Hmm.
try
Good
this then.
luck.
There you go. The weather's against you. You're
I'm
screwed.
going to find all the wacky simulator games, Charlie, and just like gift them to you
Yeah.
and just send
That's
them
what
over.
I'll do.
Tell you what, he would
Complete
love that.
every simulator game.
Yeah, add that to the backlog.
Yeah. Train simulator.
A little bit of World of Tanks I've been playing.
Nice.
Which is a game I used to play a lot.
Yeah,
I kind of just
those games are like
jump
they
in
seem
every
to
now
be
and
able
then.
to stick around just forever. World of Tanks. What's the
Yeah.
plain one?
War Thunder.
War Thunder.
They just always
Yeah.
got such a large player base.
Well, World of Tanks was one of our first games we ever played together, wasn't it, Charlie? Literally, like, when we first met, it was like, oh, kind of, what games do you play? And it's like, should we, I play World of Tanks. Oh, cool, let's play it together. And then that was it. We were just
Yeah.
the beginning.
The rest is history.
Cool.
Yeah. No. What about yourself, James?
Well, actually, I've been playing Cyberpunk.
Ooh,
Weirdly enough,
Ooh.
I've I
Funny.
don't know why. I just wanted to. Like I don't like the game particularly. I think it's okay, and I think now it's in like a no, it's in
Just
a
like
better state
punishing
now.
yourself.
Well, no, it's just like, I don't like. I mean, like obviously Ben talking about finishing his kind of backlog and going back to his unfinished games and like completing them. I didn't start again in Cyberpunk because I'd already put like 60, 70 odd hours into it. But I'm
Oh,
in the
wow.
final act now.
Mm.
So I thought, do you know what? I'm actually just going to power through it, just see it through to the end. I think I don't want to say that the criticism of the game was unfair at launch because that's not true. It was completely fair. But I do
Yeah.
believe in sort of giving things like a second chance. And we've seen many games over the years kind of have rocky launches, but then come back from that. And, you know, the Phantom Liberty DLC was announced, wasn't it, recently over the Summer Games Festival? And there's this, apparently the whole game's like kind of being
Revamped,
essentially
yeah.
revamped.
Yeah.
And that kind of
I
got
never
me
knew
interested.
if that was. So I never knew if that
Yeah.
was in now, or is that going to be when Phantom Liberty comes out?
Yeah, I think it will be part of when the DLC comes out. But
Oh,
it
I
kind of got
see.
me interested. You know what? I'm actually going to go back and just familiarize myself with the game because I think that if this revamp is kind of like as promising if it's as promising as what some people have said it is, then maybe in the future there might be I might put some time aside to actually go back to the game proper, get that DLC and try and experience Cyberpunk the way it was meant to be experienced in the beginning. Obviously
Yeah.
that game came out a couple years ago now, so the developers have had a good sort of while to spruce it up a little bit, polish it up here and there. And yeah, I don't know why, I just got pulled back to the game for some reason. I've not spent an awful amount of time on it. I've just sort of been like dipping in and out of it kind of thing because it's not a game that I'm like massively obsessing over at the moment or like addicted to or like want to actively like I need to get through this game. It's so good. I'm sort of like dipping my toe in and being like, okay, that seems better than it was before.
Oh, I see.
That's okay. And then doing like a few missions thinking it hasn't crashed yet. That's good.
Yeah,
And
no
then just sort of
T-poses.
like going back into it every now. So every time I've sort of got a spare kind of half an hour or an hour, I'll just dip into it and do a couple of side quests and like explore the city because there's no question that like exploring Night City with like graphics sort of like maxed out, it's a gorgeous game.
Yeah,
And
it
I'm not
really
going to
is.
deny that fair play to the developers for that. But yeah, it seems now a lot of the bugs that were plaguing the game in its early sort of months have been eradicated. Not so many sort of glitches and weird things going on. So I've actually enjoyed what I've played
Nice.
as I've gone back to it. And yeah, so I'm happy to sort of like see it through to the end now, I think.
Yeah, and that's quite a sort of praise coming from you because obviously in a previous episode you spoke that you had very little interest in ever seeing Cyberpunk on your computer ever again, and that's quite a jump now to like it kind of almost impressing you. It's a big jump from never playing it to actually. Do you think you'll get Phantom Liberty?
Well,
now
that's
that
the thing. Like that's the one of the main reasons I kind of got interested, I think, in going back to it because the developers are trying to make the game good, and you can't sort of like, you know, fault them for that, for trying. And at the end of the day, we forget that there are teams of like hundreds of people who work on these games and who you know, they don't deserve to be sort of like punished, I guess, and sort of like, you know, spoken ill of because of the choices of the executives and the shareholders and the pressure from them. They deserve to have their work recognized. So I think that's part of it for me, is going back and seeing how they've managed to bring the game back from essentially, you know, the self kind of like the suicide thing it kind of launched to. It's just, so yeah, I'm enjoying it, and yeah, hopefully when this Phantom Liberty DLC drops, we'll see big changes to the game, and it'll be, you know, a really good sort of experience for people.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. Awesome, dude. Yeah, very nice.
Should we get into the main chunk of the episode then?
Let's do it.
Cool. So going back to the beginning of this year, when we first started Checkpoint Radio, we introduced the Hall of Fame, where we all chose a game that we thought was iconic, a game we thought deserved to be immortalised. And from the group that we chose, we picked one between us. That first game back in that episode was Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, a very deserving game of the Hall of Fame, if I must say so myself. However, we did actually discuss that it maybe was a little bit unfair the way we did it, because there were other games like, Charlie, you mentioned Need for Speed Underground 2, which is also a really sort of iconic game that I would personally put in my own Hall of Fame. So now we're going to redo the Hall of Fame sort of concepts. We kind of come to the conclusion now that we're going to pick a game that we decide deserves to be in the Hall of Fame and basically discuss it. So this game we've collectively inducted, and it's easy to see why. It's a game that needs no introduction. It's the 2018 smash hit from Rockstar, Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an open-world, role-playing action-adventure game set in the Wild West just before the turn of the 20th century. Civilization is spreading across the country, and the days of cowboys, outlaws and gangs is slowly dying at the hands of law, order and society. The Van der Linde gang, led by the enigmatic Dutch, is doing everything in its power to hold on to the traditional ways of life and the pursuit of the so-called American dream. Under the creeping presence of civilization and on the run from federal agents, the game's playable protagonist Arthur Morgan is a notorious outlaw and one of Dutch's main enforcers. His sole purpose in assisting Dutch in trying to live outside of the law, but soon begins to doubt his own loyalty to his way of life. The player must decide whether Arthur can achieve redemption for his misgivings or become even more ruthless in his efforts to avoid the law and live the way Dutch always told him he could. Red Dead Redemption 2 is the ultimate Wild West fantasy and is rightly deserving of the next spot in the Checkpoint Radio Hall of Fame. I was going to write a massive monologue for that actually, because I feel like the game deserves this kind of poetic eulogising.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just want to talk about it because it's fucking great. So let's just get into it then.
It was an easy decision, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question that this game, it probably would be like top 3. Like if you're going to pick a game, this would be like one of 3 that you'd pick straight away to go into a Hall of Fame. So yeah, I thought I'd start at the beginning. We go back to the development and history of the game, a little bit about sort of like how that went. And I think RDR2 or Red Dead 2 started development shortly after the first game released in 2010, and it was in development for 8 years, and it cost somewhere between, I didn't actually know this, so the game reportedly cost somewhere between $370 million and $540 million, including marketing, which is just bonkers. Insane. That is like
amount of money.
Yeah, that is blockbuster movie, sort of Marvel Avengers level of budget.
Like not even most films hit even like 200 million, let alone up to 540 million.
Yeah. I can't remember where I read it though, but I read that like half of that budget was for marketing.
Yeah.
It's a crazy amount of money.
It's always a thing, like people forget that, you know, a movie, for example, and games in this case, will have like a set production budget, but the marketing will almost need to match that to kind of promote it in the way that it deserves, because it's a big sort of AAA blockbuster game. So another fact about the numbers while we're quickly talking about this, the game made just over $725 million in its opening weekend and exceeded the total sales of Red Dead Redemption 1 in just 2 weeks. So that money they spent on making the game, they made it back within days, which is
Wow.
just nuts. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the going way back to when the game was announced? You know, when they changed the Rockstar logo just to the red, and it was like everyone straight away just knew, fucking hell, Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and everyone just went crazy.
It's almost like Coca-Cola. Like Coca-Cola never need to advertise a day in their life. Everyone knows Coca-Cola. No one's going to forget about Coca. Just changing that Rockstar emblem to red, they could have ended their budget there. Everyone would have bought this game regardless. Like, obviously, it's admirable that they spent so much on advertising and the build up to Red Dead's release. Like, if that wasn't the most talked about thing in the gaming, like, World Wide Web or word of mouth, then nothing else was of import. But that, you couldn't miss it. Fans of gaming or not, Red Dead was on the way, and the world was there for it. It was a time to be hyped about games. I miss those days. I'm feeling it again with Starfield, but
I don't think anything's going to match that level of hype though for Red Dead. Like, that was the last. I mean, I've actually booked some time off work for when Starfield come out, but the last game I booked time off work for to play was Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
But like this game, I don't understand. Well, so I don't understand. It's astounding. It's impressive how Rockstar can generate all this hype. And like we talk about some of our favorite game studios, and we talk about like studios that have really reached a high bar of game development. Rockstar, they have never missed with any game that they've made. I mean, obviously they had a bit of a hiccup with the GTA Remastered trilogy, but I think wasn't that like licensed out to like a third party studio or whatever. Yeah. But their main games, they just don't miss with every single game they make is just a straight banger.
Yeah, it's just like, go on, Connor.
It's got to the point now where GTA 6 could just be a shadow drop, and they could just go, there you go, walk away, and it would make $1 billion in a weekend.
Off the chain. I got a funny story actually. Not funny. Okay. Well, it might be funny. So, same as you, James. Red Dead was on the way. I think I don't know if I bought a PS Pro to play it. I can't remember, but I was like booked off time off work to play it. Rachel was heavily pregnant, and she wasn't due until December. Okay. Obviously, Red Dead came out on October the 26th, I believe.
Yeah, around about then.
And bloody Ivy decided she wanted to pop out and come. Ivy was born on the 30th. And so Red Dead released, and I had a new kid. I couldn't bloody play it.
So that's not the worst situation to be in as well. I mean, obviously you're blessed with a beautiful baby girl, but
of course.
At the same time, like all this anticipation for this game over the past sort of like 2 years, it's just like gone now. It's like, well, I can't play it now, so at this point, fuck it. Sell the PlayStation, never gaming again, got a kid, it's over.
Could never do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, like, obviously the game has got a massive budget, and that's fully reflective in the content and what we see.
Do you know how much they made in total? Sorry, what was the total?
Actually, yeah, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but this was announced recently in like the Take-Two earnings call, and they were saying that Red Dead Redemption 2 had sold. I think it sold like 70 million copies or something. So
75 million, something. It's around that
something
ballpark.
Crazy, like because I was one of. I say I was one of the mugs, but I actively did it and I didn't care. I obviously had Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PlayStation 4. Then when it comes to PC, it was like insta buy. I just bought it again. It's like
the same.
Those games, Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA, are like two of the only games that I have bought and had before, and then bought again on the PlayStation. Like
GTA
I don't do that.
5, I've bought 3 times.
Yeah.
If that's not a testament.
And it's
I forget that game come out on like the 360 PS3 era, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it's
next
on
gen remastered than the PC.
GTA 5's now on Game Pass, and I'm thinking, I might just download it on my Xbox. Like,
why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Replay it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the game had a massive launch. It's made a shit ton of money, but I think what we really want to talk about is like the kind of the game itself. What makes this game so special? I think with Red Dead Redemption 2, there's one of the major things about Red Dead Redemption 2 is this kind of idea of art versus game. it's special in a way that it sacrifices a lot of what makes a game fun, from like a gaming sense, for the sake of making it realistic, for making it artistic. That's everything down from the way Arthur performs animations, the way he walks, the way he reloads his gun, the way you literally have to press individual actions to take items out of a drawer. You have to open the drawer, put your hand in, take the cigarettes out, take the bourbon out. And it really pushes the immersion to new heights, I think.
It really does. And I think it sort of fits the game perfectly, because they obviously GTA 4 and 5 had a lot of like, you could almost walk around and pretend you're an NPC and live in this big city. But what I feel fits Red Dead Redemption 2 so well is because of all the real life elements that you can replicate, it really makes the game feel like an actual like part of time that you are playing for real. Because obviously there's a lot of history that the game's reflecting, and I'm assuming that a lot of that history is quite accurate. But to be able to experience this heritage that all of our ancestors went through, it's actually quite amazing to be able to immerse yourself in a game that has, like you said, in the balance between like art and realism, or a game that's fun or a game that's accurate historically. The way like everything from like the way Arthur Morgan is in a fist fight and those punches feel heavy, and the way the animation reflects him getting hit, or like the way he, like you said, when he goes through his possessions or you set up a camp. And I, for instance, loved to play the game as immersively as I could, like walking around the camp, making sure that Arthur had his meal in the day, like if it got late at night, pitching up a tent and sleeping through the night. And that definitely elevated my experience of this game to new heights, because there were so many things that a real life person would do that you in a game could also do. I think that the way they focused on making the game realistic, but it wasn't a simulator. The game was realistic, but it wasn't like Arthur he can eat and you will get buffs for him eating, but it wasn't absolutely necessary for him to eat.
Yeah.
You could, like, obviously it's a game, you get shot and you die and you get healed and whatever, but the balance that they got between realism and a fun game was so perfect, because, for instance, a game like Tarkov, and it's a bit of a contrast of a comparison to make, but that game is so rooted in realism that it loses a lot of the fun.
Yeah.
And a game like Red Dead is so focused in the realism, but there's so many other features that enabled the game to be fun. Like the combat was absolutely excellent. The way he reloads, the control you had over pointing the gun in the air and shooting to make the person intimidated. There were so many levels to this game that I've not seen since, that to just take it to new heights, and is impressive today as the first day you played it. It's just amazing.
This feels like what they've been working towards for a long time, because with the dialogue, if you remember Bully, also known as Canis Canem Edit in England, you had the like antagonize and the like nice sort of conversation options from there.
Antagonize,
that come from there. The way that he holds the gun is all from Max Payne 3, where like he holds one weapon in one hand, he's got it like this. Obviously GTA, they pushed the mold with that game, and it's just a culmination of Rockstar's work. And I see that they've put like 2,200 days worth of motion capture into this game.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is like 6 years, like 1,200 actors they've put through it just to make sure everything was perfect.
Yeah, over 2,000 people helped develop Red Dead Redemption 2, and the voice acting alone took 5 years to complete. So they were recording, apparently their structure was 3 weeks of like absolute full-on grind, recording, motion capturing. They would do like group recordings, so like all the voice actors of like Arthur Morgan and Dutch and Micah and everyone, you name it, they'd all be recording in the same room all together to really get that bouncing off each other when they're all confrontational and talking about the next heist that they're going to do, and tensions are high. And But yes, apparently it was a 3-week on, 3-week off cycle, and it took 5 years for them to get all the dialogue, because obviously the game has got endless amounts of dialogue from NPCs to so, but just yeah.
Yeah, because I watched I watched a bit of a panel with some of the cast members of Red Dead the other day, and they were talking about what you just mentioned there, Ben, about this like 4 or 5 year process of like capturing the dialogue, the motion capture, and it's weird because like with a lot of games, that process of capturing the mocap and the dialogue is usually not that long. It's usually a lot shorter than that. It's like obviously the animating and all that stuff that takes the longest amount of time. But I think that's a testament to how the game creators treated this more like a movie and like an artistic process, like getting the characters right, getting the performances above everything, just spot on. Because some of the acting in this game is some of the best acting I've seen from any kind of entertainment media I've seen. And like you completely fall in love with Arthur. He's such a great character, and his story from, you know, where he starts as just being basically just a thug, just an enforcer for this gang, to going to be someone who saves John's life at the end. He saves his life and he completely changes, and it's such a great story. And but we talk about, you know, the kind of realism aspect of it, and the fact that, you know, the game developers took it as seriously as you expect a filmmaker to take a film. That's a real testament to them, and like the way it turned out was just, it is above anything I've seen from a game, I think.
Yeah.
I was seeing an interview with Dan Houser, and this main story script's 2,000 pages, whereas like the average movie's 90 pages for a script. And
nuts,
he was saying that they would edit just the trailers, like there'd be 500-600 edits. Everything would just have to be perfect, and then so it's unbelievable.
Arthur, like from like what you were saying about Arthur as a character, and just I feel like his story is just so, like, he's not your typical cowboy. When you watch like an old school American film about cowboys, or you know what I mean, read stories about cowboys, he isn't your typical like cowboy. He's an older guy who is rough and gruff. And I watched his video a few days ago to sort of scrub up on my information about Red Dead. And
I've rubbed one out about this game many times. Don't worry, there's no shame in that.
And the way that this guy was explaining his opinion of Arthur was like really spot on, and made me like think about it differently. After so long after playing it, you know what I mean. Anyway, like Arthur's just like tired. He's just a tired middle-aged dude who's I don't know, he's just on this journey, and he's working out the balance between right and wrong. He's the toughest, most meanest guy you've ever met, but he has compassion and he cares, and he was saying that like every time Arthur enters like dialogue for like a main story or a new character, it's so interesting to see what Arthur will say, because you know that he's such a unique individual that you almost know this dude. Like you know Arthur Morgan, you love Arthur Morgan, and like I just feel like Arthur Morgan. There was a lot of controversy when the game was coming out that you weren't going to be playing as John Marston, wasn't there? Like everyone wanted to be John Marston again, and then you played the game as Arthur Morgan, and then you're like, and obviously John Marston in Red Dead 2, the prequel, is almost like he's I don't know, he's not the main character you knew.
He's really immature in it, doesn't he? He doesn't realise that he's got like a really loving partner who loves him. He's got a son, and he takes it for granted a lot of the times. He doesn't realise. But you know, John in Red Dead 1 is an iconic character himself. Like he's such a great character. You think, I don't know how they can top this. And then they fucking bring Arthur onto the scene. It's like, who's John? Like,
you don't expect to love him more, do you?
Yeah, and I credit the houses for that, because most studios would have gone, no, you're playing as John again. Arthur would be there and he would have been a side character. Yeah, but they were like, no, like this is our guy, and he's such a good character. Like I was playing this week leading up to this, and I forgot how funny he can be. Like It was a mission where you go and rob a stagecoach with Charles, Bill, Uncle, and Arthur. And Uncle's obviously got this plan, and he goes, "Are you in, Arthur?" And he goes, "Well, if we two things, either we get rich, or you get shot, and I'm happy." Like, and it's just so fucking dry.
Yeah.
And he's just gruff. He's intimidating, but he has got like a heart of gold. He cares for those characters.
Well, you have to
And-
assume that everything he does for the good of the other people in the gang, because you know by playing him that he could very well make it alone.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
go and live this free life.
Yeah.
But he stays with the gang for loyalty.
Yeah. But it's weird though, because I feel like as kind of like, to talk about Dutch a little bit, as bad of a person Dutch is, I feel like a lot of the way Arthur has turned out is because Dutch kind of raised him in a way to be strong and to be sort of like, you know, supportive of the people around you. I think Dutch has got his own issues. Like, he's a fucking egomaniac, and he's let this ideal that he's got in his head get in the way of the good people around him who are trying to help him. There's I think I linked it to you guys the other day. You know that the scene where Arthur speaks with the nun, with I think Sister Mary, her name is. It's probably my favourite scene in the whole game, because he's kind of saying to her, like, I'm a bad person, I'm dying, I'm scared, and she's like, you're not a bad person. Like, every time I see you, you're helping someone else.
Yeah.
Like, you're putting someone else before yourself. And I think that's the whole thing about Arthur, is that he doesn't believe in himself, and he doesn't realise like how influential, like positively, he can be for people, and how positive he has been. And I think towards the end, when, you know, he's kind of on his last legs, he realizes that, and he helps John escape, helps him survive. And that's kind of his like redemption story, you know, all the bad that he's done in his life. He's realized at the end, you know what, actually I can do something positive. I can help someone get out of this, live happily, and that will be the last thing I do before I die. And that's like his legacy being passed on, you know.
And towards the end, you can start making choices for other people. Like when you're sort of doing debt collecting kind of thing, you can choose not to collect the debt. You pay it yourself, or things like that. And
it's like, that road of redemption.
Because so go on, Ben.
I was just going to say, and that's one of the reasons why I think Red Dead 2 is so good, is because there are so many games and films and TV shows where they will reference like the good old days. Like if you ever played like a sci-fi game, and there would have been like an amazing civilization back in the day, but it always seems to be like in the past, something that's always referenced. The one thing that I love about Red Dead 2 is like, that is the good old days. You are in the good old days. Like Red Dead 1 would have been referencing John Marston's good old days, but Red Dead Redemption 2 are those good old days. And with John and with Arthur and him on that sort of self-discovery journey, he is this like absolute beast. But like you were saying, Charlie, at the end, when you start to make decisions that can really sort of put his mind at ease, because he knows he's on the way out, he knows it doesn't all matter in the end, and he's done some terrible things. And
I loved that bit when he kind of confronts Herr Strauss, and he's like, you're taking money from vulnerable people that can't pay it back. Like, it's fucked up. Like he's a guy who robs and steals and murders, but he's got, strangely enough, a strong moral code as well. And as you go through the game, that reveals itself more and more and more. And I know you get a choice in the game, and like you can have low honor and high honor, which is one of the interesting things about the game, actually. But I've always thought that canonically, it makes more sense for Arthur to die a good person and be honorable. It doesn't make sense for him to be a bad person, because the whole story is about someone atoning for their sins and kind of like getting over the fact that, you know, they're not a bad person. Actually, inherently, they're a good person. They've just been maybe led astray by someone like Dutch and people like Micah, who are there just purely to disrupt the kind of good people around them.
So I've been replaying it in preparation for this, and there is two sides to Arthur. And there's a comment where Hosea says that he was raised by like this weird loving couple, which was Hosea and Dutch.
Yeah.
And you see it. Hosea is the lovable con man. Yeah, he robs people, but he doesn't kill people. And Dutch is this egomaniac where he's got, we got a plan, but he'll murder everyone in sight. Yeah. And that is like the sides of Arthur. He wants to be more like an Hosea, but Dutch is the one that he sees as a father, and he's raised him. He twists him like he twists everyone else, and he has Micah around who's an absolute killer. Yeah. But then he's surrounded by people like Hosea and Charles, which is like he's such a good character. Again, like he's a good guy, and he says throughout the story to Huff, like, you're not a bad person.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good point. Like talking about like the camp, and we mentioned it briefly towards the beginning, but I think there was another, like from a game design perspective, having the player like being part of a gang, but actually feeling very much part of a gang, like having the camp, making donations, checking up on everyone, exploring everyone's individual story, picking up a bag of grain and moving it along, and attending to the horses. Yeah. And I feel like where the game is so focused around the gang, it would be totally missing from the game if they didn't include a like the whole camp element to the game.
Yeah.
I feel like that took things to new heights where you'd move around, the story would force the gang to relocate, and then you get attached to the crew, you get like such good stories, such good interactions.
Sitting around the campfires and just talking to the NPCs and the dancing, the parties and stuff.
And everyone's from different backgrounds. You've got immigrants, you've got black, you've got white, you've got racists, you've got pacifists, you've got women, you got all of it. And it's just like, it's such a good... If it was just a group of like, everyone was like a mica, everyone was a proper cowboy, they managed to do so much, because when you really get to see Dutch's side of it, when he's like, we are just good people trying to make a place in our world that's slowly eroding away, because there are good people in the camp. So you get where Dutch is coming from, and you're behind him, and you want it to succeed. But when everything starts splitting at the seams, you realize that it's not the dream enough, that
I've
Dutch
been noting down like the random NPCs encounters I've seen at the camp, because I see, if you notice, Karen throughout all the camps, she just slowly drinks herself to death, and I'd never noticed it. After the attack that she had in the hotel, she just drinks and drinks and drinks, and I've been walking around the camp, and I see her in the morning like leaning up against a tree, like drunk out of her face. And I never noticed it before, like little details like that. I see Sean headbutt Kieran because he was an O'Driscoll, and like Charles threatening to kill Bill because Bill's a racist. And like I've never really noticed it, 'cause before, when I first played it, I'd spend some time at camp, but then I'd just go away exploring. So I've been spending more time there, and like Lenny falls out with Bill as well, because Bill doesn't trust him because he's a young kid and all this. And you see all
strong characters,
the squabbles. You see like Javier talking about Mexico and how he had to leave because he had a hit on his head. And like you said, you actually give a shit about these characters.
Yeah, I mean, how hard is it? Like, I think for a lot of game developers, it's hard for game developers nowadays to make a main protagonist that you care about, but to make a whole gang of people that you care about, and then a horse that you care about, the random NPCs that you meet in the world that you care about. I remember when I played the game for the first time, and I hurtled off a fucking cliff on my horse and it died. I was like heartbroken. I was like, I can't believe I've lost this horse that has been with me throughout the whole game.
Bonded.
And like, the bond that the developers have managed to create between you and the random NPCs in the game, it really adds to the realism and just like the world being alive, because we talk about these big open world games and the lack of immersion and the lack of kind of depth and detail in the games, but because you've got so many great characters around you that have their own lives, like you can literally follow an NPC in the game and they will go and get food at the bar and have a drink, they'll go to work, they'll come back and they'll go to bed. They have like a whole routine. Every NPC in the game, all of the animals live in an like an environment where it's supported by like predator and prey. They wouldn't exist anywhere where they shouldn't exist. Those animals are there for a reason, and the plant life is there because it's meant to be there. And like all of these tiny little details, they don't seem like much as you notice them, but then you put it all together and it makes this open world that I don't think there's a game that can match what Red Dead Redemption 2 has done with its open world. Like, the open world is just fucking crazy. And well, as we talked about the characters, let's talk about the open world and the graphics and the technical side of it, because one of the big things that I sort of appreciate about the game is that even after 5 years, even if you go back and play it on the PS4, it still looks incredible. And it's just it's so great how the game has like held up mean, 5 years is not a long time, but then I guess in some aspects it is a long time for technology.
Yeah, I think so. Technology wise, 5 years is actually quite a giant leap in
especially since we've jumped. It's been a different console generation as well, and they haven't released like a PS5 upgrade and stuff like that. It still looks fantastic.
That's it. And like, if you wanted to start focusing on world building now, James, like the world that like you were saying with all the animals it's just an incredible feat when you consider all of the animations for every single animal, all of the fur, all of the detail. Like, you could zoom in on a crocodile and it looks absolutely impeccable. Zoom in on a songbird and it looks absolutely impeccable. But then you go and play a game like Hunter Call of the Wild, for instance. And I'm not trying to shit on this game now, but this is a game 100% focused on hunting, and they seem to like miss the target a bit. The animations are okay. The life of the amount of wildlife is actually not that much. But then you take hunting in Red Dead Redemption 2, which is very much just a side activity, and it is crazy the amount of depth, the amount of wildlife, the amount of the tools at your disposal, all the skinning. Like, they
like covering your scent as well. Like, you have to cover your scent when you go
all
hunting,
of that.
Otherwise you won't catch anything, and things will attack you.
Yeah, and this is just a side thing you can choose to do. It's completely it's completely optional. Whereas you got a game like Call of Hunter or whatever it's called, and that's the entire game is that, and it is literally a fraction of what Red Dead managed to do.
Fishing the other day, and an eagle swooped down and picked like a trout out of a river and then pulled up. And I was thinking, that's cool, but I was thinking, I don't think I've seen that to that level of detail in.
But you know what,
game.
as well, like if you shot that eagle,
you
could then skin that eagle and that fish you could take as well. Like, it's not like just a random animation. It doesn't actually happen in the game. It happens in the game.
Yeah. It's
and
not
those
scripted.
animals exist.
Yeah, it's not scripted, and then if you break that script, it just vanishes because it's like, oh, I didn't program that for that instance to happen. But yeah, the world is absolutely gorgeous, and like, I'm sure if we all jumped into the game now and played it for 2 hours, we'd probably see somewhere that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
The interiors. Yeah, it's just
the landscapes are so diverse as well. Like, you've got deserts, you've got snowy mountains, you've got like plains, you've got forests,
swamps,
like, cities.
The cities, it's crazy, like the detail in all of those. And it's not, one thing I like is that if you go to the forest, it's not, some games will try and overload you of like, oh, there's this cool thing here, there's this to see, there's that to see.
It feels like a forest.
It's
sparse, and then it's not filled with like side missions and NPCs.
I mean, you might get, one of the other things I like is that you might come across a stranger out in the middle of nowhere that needs your help. You can choose to help them, or you can kill them and rob them, but those are some of the best encounters.
One of the things I really love about like the landscape in Red Dead Redemption 2 is that when you think of westerns or like Wild West anything, you think just desert, cacti, spurs, dusty, tumbleweed. Obviously, you've got like that area sort of past Blackwater that is that. But I love the fact that most of the game takes place in this kind of like green sort of mountainous, hilly, and like you got the swamps and stuff. I love that the game is set like that rather than it just being desert, because we talked earlier about Arthur kind of breaking. Exactly, we talked earlier about Arthur kind of breaking this stereotype of a cowboy. He's not a cowboy, and in the same way, the landscape has like this not normal stereotype of a western. It's so much green. It's snowy in areas, and there's like these crystal clear lakes that you can go and fish in and stuff. And it's actually quite a pleasure to roam around the landscape, find a spot to kind of pull up in and set up camp for the night. Like that is a whole experience in itself.
It really is.
Waking up to the sunrise over the mountains, it's like, it's such a fucking, like, I don't know. It's just like, it makes you feel like you're living in there for that sort of brief moment.
Yeah, it definitely made me reflect on like the way the world is now, and like when I obviously cutting down trees, it's necessary, but I hate it because it's like, I just leave the forest alone. I very sort of strongly believe that. And when I play the game, I kind of like, Yeah, of course. But I feel the allure of the world, and I just feel like it's so untouched back then, and it's very rare for a game to be able to invoke like real life emotions from stuff I feel about in real life. Like when I'm playing a game, if you need to kill a dog, I'm very much going to be depending on what the character would do. But when I'm playing Red Dead, because it makes me feel so in touch with the real world because of the world building. It's absolutely amazing. I actually feel like my own personal like feelings and like preferences will come through in how I play it. So I don't know. I just feel like the game
You
is
see, like the whole thing is this is like the end of the Outlaw era, and you see at the beginning of the game, you go to Valentine, which is meant to be like an old sort of Western sort of town, not much going on. And then when you go to Saint Denis for the first time, it feels like, what the hell is this? It's cramped, it's full of people, it's they've got smog going around, and it feels it. Even though it's like a 5-minute ride on your horse, it feels like a completely different part of the world.
Well, that's exactly the type of thing that Dutch is running away from.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be part of civilization. He wants to live on his own terms. Just speaking of the world bit, I just wanted to ask you guys a question. Like, obviously, we know that there are a lot of random NPC encounters in the game. Has anyone got a favorite NPC encounter or like an anecdote they'd like to share?
Great question.
I know my favorite NPC in the game.
Okay.
And that is
where's Gavin?
Yeah.
That is
Has anyone seen Gavin?
I think my favourite is
so sad.
There's like an injured war veteran, and you come across him, and he's lost his horse, and you help him, and then every so often he's got like a cabin by a lake, and every so often you'll ride past, and you can go in and speak to him, and like you'll go hunting or you go fishing with him.
Oh yeah, I remember
and it's
this
just
dude.
I don't know.
I've never had that.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen this guy.
Yeah, he like Charlie said, you regularly. It's obviously it's a stranger event, so you very much have to make it happen. The game's not going to be like, oh, go here because he's ready to talk to again.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to remember where he said he'd be, and then you go there, and he's there, and you can literally like go fishing with him and hunt a bear or something like that. I can't remember.
Like I don't know whether you have to trigger it by helping him with the horse the first time, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just really nice.
That's great. I haven't heard of that one before.
Yeah.
I think I know where the cabin is though, because if you look on the map, there's a lake like, up north, and it says Hunter's Cabin or like Old Veterans Cabin or something.
Yeah,
I never actually went
that's
there.
the one.
But I'm assuming that's.
I've been in that cabin and explored it, and no one was there, and I always
robbed it. Took the veteran's last money clip.
I had one. It's sort of a stranger encounter. You run into this, you think is a couple, and you find out it's a brother and sister, and they're like together, and they've killed their parents, and like they're in some sort of incestual relationship, and
I remember
they like trying to get you into the bedroom with them. It's very weird.
The one at the pig farm.
Yeah, one at the pig farm.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen this.
You go in there and they try and have dinner with you, and she goes upstairs to get ready, and he sort of sends you up like this. But if you look in one of the cupboards, their mother's bones are inside. Ooh. And Arthur's like, what the fuck is this? And obviously you kill him, and you can, if you unlock a certain bit of dialogue, there's some loot behind a painting of their mother. But there is, I've seen it online as well. You can take them to their like parents where they've buried them, and like chuck them on top of it, and they lose their mind. But yeah, it really was quite dark and twisted, but it stuck with me. It's really good writing as well. You just go in there, and it's just a small interaction, 5-10 minutes, but it really does sit with you.
Nice.
And just what an amazing feature. To have strangers to expand.
I was just walking past the farm, and he goes, "Oh, howdy, stranger! Like, do you need a rest or something?"
I don't know what my favourite one is, but one that I remember is, you know, when you can help the father and the son build that house.
Yeah.
So they need some money, and you donate, and then every time you go back, they're further on through it. And then there's one time where you go back and they're being raided and you can help.
Mm.
And I even had it where, obviously I like save scuffed, but I think I was helping them fight and like the son or the dad died. And it was totally like scripted, not scripted as in like it was foretold, but because of whoever did die, the father was like, no, I can't believe it. Like my son's died, and everything went to shit. And then, but like, I think I reloaded it because I was like, no, I'm not starting with that. I'm going to fuck these guys up and win. And then they like complete the house, and it just feels like, you know, when we were talking about Arthur reflecting on what good he's done in the world towards the end of the game, like it's very much one of those moments where he made a difference.
Yeah, like you believe that he very much would have helped those people
Yeah,
if he encountered them.
Yeah.
What's
yours?
There's a couple of things like that I remember specifically from the game. The first time I played the game, you guys have probably come across this, but as you're kind of trotting through the bayou through the swamps, you'll see like a hanging body. I don't know if
I've
you've
had
seen
that.
this.
Yeah.
You see a hanging body, and then I stopped to inspect it, and all these fucking little dudes with like painted faces and knives just come rushing out
What the
of
hell?
the bushes, and like jumped me, and they killed
I've
me
never
the
had
first
that.
time.
Did you read the note?
No, I've never seen that.
I funnily enough come across this for the first time the other day, that there's a note on the body.
I didn't know there's a note on the body.
Yeah.
Can you shoot it down then?
You could shoot it down, which
Okay.
I did, and then I got jumped. And then there's a note on the body, and they're called like the Night People. And apparently, like they'd been stalking him, and he thought he was being watched all the time, and he hung himself. And it's just
Shit,
little
I
details
didn't see that bit.
There's a body near. Is Valentine the first? No, Strawberry. Is that the first?
Valentine. I know. That's a proper side
a
quest.
mutilated
There's
troll.
of like a serial
underneath
killer. The train tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
you
separate.
find...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you find like a little drawing, don't you, on that body, and it leads you on this sort of trail of this serial killer. But there's this thing that happens in the swamps. It's a completely random event. That so you see his swinging body, and then all these little fucking weird people come out and like try to kill you.
Yeah, they've got
the other
like
thing as well.
Face paint. And
they're all painted up
fuckers.
like sort of topless, just like little fucking cloths over their dicks, and they're just running around like knifing people. But the other thing that was quite funny was it was a bit annoying at the same time. I remember being like called down an alleyway in Saint Denis. These like two little kids, and they're like, "Hey, mister, come down here," and you get jumped, then you get robbed. And then I went back there like the next day, and then the next day I went back there again to try and find these fucking little shits that are taking my money, but they just disappear. It's so annoying. But there's like so many things like that that happen in the game that really flesh out, you know, the world. And you kind of look at games like Assassin's Creed, where you don't really get to talk to NPCs, you don't really get to interact with anyone apart from like quest givers, and it makes the world feel bland. And the fact that there's these random events and random people, like the guys who are logging in the middle of the forest, and then the fucking tree falls down and like kills that guy. It's just so good, like the way that it's all been sort of scripted, not scripted. It kind of feels organic the way it kind of all unfolds.
You do feel like every one of those NPCs has their own life that they're living. They're not just like, oh, he's there. Oh, if I go around this corner, he's gonna not be there.
He's just gonna run away. There's no dialogue.
Running into clan meetings in like the middle of the night, and I just keep fucking them up.
I remember my first playthrough. I think it was just after I got like dynamite or something like that. And I found like them in the woods. I was like, just launched the dynamite in.
Isn't there a bit where there's Sorry, Ben, go on.
I was just going to say, it's just like 200% effort from the devs, isn't it?
Yeah, literally like above and beyond.
Yeah.
I was walking through like Lemoyne one night. I think my horse had died or it had run off, and I'm just walking, and it takes ages to get back to camp. I'm saying, oh, fuck. And I just see like this flaming cross in the forest.
Oh, it's just like the clan members.
And I just walk in, and there's a bunch of clan members, and it's the first time I was playing the game. I was thinking, what the fuck is this? And then I just just gunned them all down.
Guns out. Yeah.
What were you originally going to say?
I was just going to say, did you remember those two guys that are trying to crack open that safe?
Yeah.
And then they use TNT, but like, they kill themselves in the process.
Or the guy who gets fucking bucked by the horse. You walk past it. I think
sort of like you whistle that you go, "Hey, Miss," and he turns around, and the horse just boots him in the head.
Oh yeah, it's so cruel. I think one of my funniest moments on Red Dead, fondest memories, funniest bits that actually probably had me laughing out loud was, you know, when you're absolutely steaming drunk and you're looking for Lenny, and everyone's face is Lenny's, and it just gets crazy. That was oh, it's so funny.
good.
If I could play that one bit right now, I would.
Yeah,
It was
so good.
hilarious.
Well, that's quite a good segue for the next section. I think we talked about like the technical and world and stuff like that of the game, and everyone knows it's just ridiculously impressive, obviously. But Red Dead Redemption 2 is a massive game, and it's had a huge impact on a lot of people. Part of like a really sort of like great year for games. 2018, we had the God of War reboot. We had Spider-Man, God of the Year. We had Spider-Man as well on PlayStation.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of like the cinematic and immersive games, Red Dead definitely takes it to like a different level. And for me, it outshines so many games today. And I just want to talk a little bit about the critical and sort of like audience response to this game, because even now, 5 years later on, the love and kind of admiration for this game is as sort of like feverish as it was back then.
You've hit the nail on the head there. The game has earned its reputation. I mean, Rockstar have earned their reputation, but that doesn't come from anything other than like what we just said, 200% effort. Taking games above and beyond, redefining what a AAA actually means. So many games come out as AAAs, but if you were to really compare a game like Red Dead to, I can't make a good comparison in my mind right now, but a number of AAA games that have come out over the years, and then you really consider the amount of time and effort and hours and finance and everything that goes into making a game truly AAA, I really feel like there should almost be a quadruple A category reserved especially for the likes of Red Dead Redemption 2, because it is on another level. It's absolutely like it's just on another level. But yeah, going back to Red Dead and how the social effect it's had on the world and the gaming industry, it's crazy to think that this game was on consoles that, I mean, graphically it was on another level, story-wise it was on another level. It came out when, I mean, Rockstar obviously only come out of bangers, but they take their time. Like, obviously, it's almost like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Behind the scenes, there's a lot going on, but you only ever see the chimneys in the distance bellowing smoke. I've used the Charlie and Chocolate Factory analogy too.
I was going to say, this is like a go-to, isn't it?
You love it.
Yeah,
if I need to make a point about something, I'm going to bring up Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. To
I think it's quite a good point. But but it is because they like to just crack on. They don't like to create much of a scene. You don't hear much from them. Obviously, we had the leak for GTA 6 recently, which is such a shame for the developers. But we know that they're working on something in the background. When aren't they? And they'll release it when it's ready, and they'll make it 10 out of 10. They'll raise the bar for years and years and years to come. Red Dead came out in 2018, and I don't think they've had a match really to this day.
They haven't, and we kind of like, everyone sort of looks at Red Dead 2 and thinks, it's one of the best games from last generation. It's one of the best games that's ever released, like, in my opinion, and it might even be the best, because like we kind of said at the beginning, this whole kind of art versus game like scenario, like, how can you push a game further than you take some of the best games of all time, whatever your list is, you might have games for the Nintendo 64 in there, you might have like Call of Duty or something like that, but how can you really push video games to another level? And for Rockstar, it seemed like it was bringing in the aspects and the realism from our everyday lives, particularly lives and the world of that time, and making it a core aspect of the game. That's how you elevate this game to the next level.
It just fits the genre. It's a role-playing game.
Yeah.
There's no other game. Well, there are other games out there where you feel like you are who you're playing, but it is the definition of role-playing game. You are Arthur Morgan, and you can do what you like. You have the freedom to do what you wish. There's not many limits, and it must have had a massive effect. Like, every single game dev out there, not Rockstar, I'm talking every other game dev, they all played Red Dead, and it would have had a better effect on them. They would have taken, like, they would have been in absolute awe and astonishment, and they would have known the
ingoings and type thing.
They would have appreciated what that game is on another level, because like if you're a game dev on the Witcher team, and obviously The Witcher was a fantastic game, but there's no way they wouldn't be looking at Red Dead Redemption 2 and be like, this is fucking amazing. Like, and how can we? What have they done that we can do? And how could they do this? And I know that when we make a game, we do it this way. They must have they reverse engineer it, and I don't know.
You know, when like GTA 6 gets announced and there's like, right, it's coming out this date, then every other developer is going to we're fucking avoiding that. We're going to come early. We're going to go. Get out the fucking way.
Yeah. They'll be booking time off work to play.
Yeah, there's very few studios and games like it. I haven't seen, obviously, Starfield's in the zeitgeist at the moment, and rightfully so. That game looks fantastic, but it doesn't seem like every year you get a game like that, and it's
a generational game, isn't it? It's literally a once in a generation thing.
And they did it with the 360 era. It was one of the last games on 360. That game come out and it was absolutely stunning. It pushed the 360 and the PS3 to its graphical limit and what you could do on that console. And they did exactly the same with the PS4 and the Xbox One, and obviously on PC as well. They've just pushed it. They've seen what they can do with these consoles, and they've just wrung out every last drop they can get out of it.
Yeah. One of the things that I kind of like really appreciate about a game, appreciate about Red Dead, is like just the pure love that the fans have for like the cast and the appreciation they've got of the actors. And I mentioned earlier that I've been watching like panels, like these Comic-Con type sort of panels, and like these game convention panels where all the cast will be there chatting to the host and the audience. And you don't see that with many games. Like you don't see that much fanfare over the cast of a game in many other games. Like, obviously, we look at like, I don't know, Kratos from God of War and think, great performance, love that.
Of course.
And you probably think that about a handful of other games. But you don't get an entire fucking cast of like 5, 6, 7 people going from convention to convention to convention, sitting down with an audience for an hour, talking about their experiences on making this game, making the audience laugh, connecting you with those people. Because it's weird, because obviously when you watch a film, for example, you go and watch the Marvel films, you think, you know, Chris Evans as Captain America, he's like the face of the Avengers. Same with Robert Downey Jr. and you know, Chris Hemsworth and stuff like that. You don't really have that kind of connection with games. You don't really put the actors' faces to the games in that way. But with this game, you definitely do. And you listen to the guy who, I can't remember his name, the guy who plays John, and his voice is John, and like the way he kind of talks about John and the way he talks about his experience on the set. The same with Roger Clark, who plays Arthur Morgan. The same with the guy who plays Dutch, who's like 6'7" in real life, by the way. He's fucking massive.
Yeah, he's huge.
Like the way they talk about these characters, like they take it so seriously, and that is fully reflected in the game, and it's reflected in us when we watch it and appreciate it. And I never watch actors from video games talking about being in the video game, because I appreciate it, but frankly I don't really care too much. I just want to play the game. But for this game, I want to know about the actors. I don't think any other game has done that.
Well, Rockstar did it before, didn't they? Like Trevor.
Trevor was a mess.
I was just gonna say.
So it's like it's definitely
Rockstar
not
thing.
It is a Rockstar thing, and I know I'm going to say it for a third time. It's 200% effort. It's script writing on another level. You don't get a game that good with a script that's okay. You get a game that good with a script that is beyond excellent.
And you see
that's outstanding, directors who are outstanding, best in class developers. Everything's got to be literally the very top of the tree.
You see in the last couple of years, journalists keep making this issue about like video game developers grinding, like they have to do these ridiculously long weeks. You don't really hear developers moan about it, because I think they're used to it, and if they love the game. And Dan Houser said they were working 100-hour weeks some weeks to get this game out. And there's not one developer that's come out and said, man, it's like they're running it over there, they're cracking the whip every 2 seconds. It's all from passion. They all want it to be the best game possible. And the amount of work that they put in, it's like 2,200 days of motion capture work. That's what probably
nuts.
That's equivalent to what Avatar, maybe.
Yeah, years, isn't it? It's years.
Yeah, it's years of people's lives, and obviously, not every studio gets the luxury of doing that. And Rockstar are very, very fortunate. You see a few PlayStation games now with $220 million budgets, and it's not really sustainable. But with Rockstar, they can go out, put GTA 6 out. They're going to make 10 years worth of GTA Online money with that game.
Yeah.
And they can continue to do this. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Charlie, how do you feel about the reception of the game? Obviously you fanboy over it as much as anyone else does, I assume.
Yeah, I think the reception it got is very well earned.
Yeah.
Like everyone, I don't think I've ever heard someone go, don't really like it. Like it is just loved by everyone.
By everyone,
Did
everywhere.
Rightly so.
Did you ever see that guy? It was like a short, like little YouTube short where it's this kid who's playing Red Dead 2 for the first time, and it's the snowy bit, which is what I was going to say this earlier. I think the snowy bit is an excellent start to the game. I was hooked from the moment it started. But anyway, he's like commenting like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, is this game this slow the whole way through?" Like slagging it off almost. And then it cuts to him at the very end,
bawling his
Arthur
eyes out.
Yeah, he's crying. Like Arthur's just
crying.
died, and he's like absolutely in bits because of this excellent story that he's just played. And
I think that kind of sums up the game, doesn't it? I think everyone kind of has that kind of initial sort of like, okay, I see what they're trying to do here. Let's see if it can actually hold up, because it is a bit of a shock actually going to. I mean, even me jumping into the game recently and playing it, it's a little bit of like an adjustment period of getting used to the slower pace, getting used to the way the game plays completely differently to anything else. And you can't do superhuman things as Arthur like you can do in most games. Even if you just play as a regular human in those games, you can still do the gamery sort of things. But in Red Dead, you can't. It really limits you to what's actually physically capable for a person. And yeah, sometimes it is slow, and sometimes it's like, oh, geez, I don't know about this. But ultimately, it all adds to making a game that is hyper realistic and very appreciative of the time that it's set in. Yeah.
Crazy.
So one kind of final point. Then I guess we've kind of covered it already, but Red Dead Redemption 2 in 2023, revisiting the game, I think we can all agree it holds up and then some by today's standards.
Yeah, like if we consider all the elements graphically, absolutely, especially on a PC.
Yeah,
I don't know about next gen consoles, but I'm sure it looks as gorgeous as.
It looks great on the PS5, and they haven't done like a.
There's not a next gen patch for it, so you're still playing like the PS4 version on the PS5, but it still looks. Still looks great.
Looks great.
And then obviously story, that's eternal. That's never going to fade. Everything from, I don't know. I mean, like, just it holds up. There's no reason why it shouldn't. And
I've been more impressed going back into it because I'm doing
I think
stuff.
I agree with that. I think I have as well.
I loved the game when it first came out, and I cried, and I was like dead silent for hours after I finished the game. I felt like a shell of a human being, and I was just sitting there like that video where he's just staring at the screen like, what the fuck? And then I've gone back into it, and I've done stuff. I've explored places that I didn't do before. I've run into things, and it's just like the little scripted moments, and it's just game design like we've never seen before. It's unbelievable.
I think this is a game that we're going to be talking about in 10 years time.
Yeah,
without question, maybe even 15 or 20 years time. I mean, I often go back and reference my time on the Nintendo 64 as a young boy playing Zelda. I imagine that this game is going to be spoken about in that exact same kind of way of being iconic, be like genre defining, generational.
It's going to be like Final Fantasy 7 and Ocarina of Time, I think, where people go in like 15, 20 years, people are going to be like, what's the game that got you into video games? And it's going to be the generation before us saying Red Dead Redemption 2 like blew my mind.
Yeah. I always have a thought of when my daughter gets older, when she might take up an interest in gaming. Like, I think about, like, I want her to experience some of the most iconic games of the past. And because I don't want her, if she does get into gaming, I don't want her just to play games that come out from the moment she starts and then onwards. I want her to revisit some of the old school classics, and obviously Red Dead 2 by then would have been a classic, or will be a classic. And I want her to experience that. It would be criminal for anyone who picks up gaming in the future to never play Red Dead Redemption 2. I couldn't imagine like calling yourself a gamer if you've never experienced that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you like to think that that's a new generation of people will do that. You know, like we all love films here as well, and I love science fiction, and I go back to watch all of the iconic sci-fi movies, Alien,
of course.
Blade Runner, 2001, Space Odyssey, and it's like those movies, and in this regard, this game has got the kind of, you know, the praise that it's got, and it's got that crown for a reason, and people need to continue to experience this game, and I'm no doubt. Maybe not this generation, but maybe the next generation, there could be like a remaster for it or like a re-release for it. And I'm sure, you know, these games deserve to be kind of like brought to new audiences constantly. And yeah, I'm sure Rockstar will do that.
Of course.
I hope so.
Well, that was Hall of Fame episode 10. Thank you all for listening. It's good to be back. We've really enjoyed it and we hope you did too. If you want to see more of us, then check out the link in the description to see our YouTube, our socials, our Discord and more. My name's James.
I'm Ben.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Charlie. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
See ya.